Main airport remains.
2 destructive storms in Europe, record-breaking snowfalls in Japan, anomalous cold in the Caribbean, an unseasonal tropical storm in the Philippines. In today's issue, we cover these and other climate events of the past week. Anomalous cold. Almost the entire Central Federal District of Russia came under the influence of anomalous cold in early February. In many regions, extremely low temperatures were recorded, more typical of Siberian regions than of the European part of the country. Abnormal frosts in the Penza, Belgorod, Voronezh, and Kursk regions were accompanied by temperature drops to -30 degrees Celsius and below, while average daily values were 19 to 23 degrees lower than the climatic norm. In the Komi Republic, the most severe frost was recorded, nearly -42 degrees Celsius. It should be noted that the extreme frosts lasted not just one day, but persisted for an extended period. Against the backdrop of the warm and mild winters of recent years, this appears especially striking. In Moscow, temperatures were significantly lower than typical February values. On the 3rd of February, -21.6 degrees Celsius was recorded in the capital, while the average minimum for the month here is -8.8 degrees Celsius. Lithuania also came under the grip of anomalous cold, intense snowfall, and gusty winds. In the city of Shedova, on the 2nd of February, the temperature dropped to -34.3 degrees Celsius. Such frost had not been recorded in the country for 30 years. Due to extreme weather conditions, public transportation operated with disruptions, and some schools switched to remote learning. Extremely low temperatures caused severe tension and breakage of overhead power lines. About 10,000 people were left without electricity. Residents kept their stoves burning around the clock to protect themselves from the cold. At least 30 people suffered hypothermia and frostbite of the extremities, sometimes with the threat of amputation. As a result of the extreme cold, 3 people died in the country. Ukraine was also struck by severe frosts. In early February, in the north and west of the country, thermometers dropped to -30 degrees Celsius, and authorities declared a red level of danger. In Kyiv, due to worsening weather and a sharp drop in temperature, the Kyiv-Pechersk-Lavra was temporarily closed to visitors. An unusual natural phenomenon occurred in the Zaporizhzhia region. The Sea of Azov froze for more than 200 meters from the shore. Local residents note that such cases have not occurred for at least 15 years. In the Kirovohrad region, frost of -22 degrees Celsius caused the soil to freeze to a depth of half a meter, while the upper layer of fields became covered with an ice crust. Specialists note that such weather conditions pose a serious threat to the survival of winter crops such as rapeseed, barley, and wheat. In Cuba, on the 3rd of February, for the first time in the entire history of observations, the thermometer dropped to 0 degrees Celsius. Vegetation near the weather station was covered with frost, a cold air mass spread across most of the country. At 32 weather stations, temperatures dropped to +10 degrees Celsius and below, an extremely unusual phenomenon for the tropics. It was also anomalously cold in the Bahamas. In the city of Freeport, the temperature dropped to 10.8 degrees Celsius, which became the lowest temperature ever recorded in the country. In Guatemala, a national record for minimum temperature was also set. Storm Marta. Just a few days later, on the 7th of February, the new storm Marta struck Spain and Portugal. It hit soil already saturated with moisture, which intensified the flooding. South of Lisbon, on mainland Portugal, the storm brought heavy downpours and strong winds with gusts exceeding 70 kilometers per hour. More than 100,000 residents were left without electricity. Due to severe weather conditions, 3 municipalities postponed the presidential elections scheduled for the 8th of February. The disaster claimed the lives of 2 people.
Por lo demás agua, más
Southern and western Spain were hit by continuous downpours. According to farmers, the damage to crops is catastrophic. Thousands of hectares of broccoli, carrots, and cauliflower were submerged underwater. In lowland areas, water flooded citrus plantations, orchards, and pastures. In Almeria province, hurricane-force winds destroyed vegetable greenhouses and also damaged rural roads and access routes to farms. Storm Leonardo. Storm Leonardo, which has already become the 6th this year, once again brought serious Ispitania to residents of southern Europe. The elements struck the Iberian Peninsula with downpours classified as extraordinary. Portugal and Spain found themselves at the epicenter of the natural disaster. The overflowing Sado River turned the streets of the town of Alcácer do Sal into rushing torrents. And in some places, the water level reached 2 meters. People stated that they had never encountered such a powerful force of water before. Playgrounds, homes, and businesses were flooded. Floods, landslides, and fallen trees forced more than 200 residents to leave their homes. In Portugal, a state of emergency was declared in 69 districts of the country. After crossing the Pyrenees, the storm struck Andalusia in Spain. More than 7,000 residents were evacuated, classes in schools were massively cancelled, and seaports were closed throughout the region. Railway connections on strategically important routes were seriously disrupted, and about 50 highways were closed. Due to strong winds at the major Malaga Costa del Sol airport, a passenger aircraft was unable to land, and many flights were redirected to other regions of Spain. In just 16 hours, more than 400 millimeters of precipitation fell on the mountain town of Grazalema, nearly the annual norm. Water penetrated through the walls of houses and flowed in streams down narrow stone streets, turning the tourist town into a disaster zone. Residents were forced to break openings in exterior walls to drain the water, as there were no other options. Many were urgently evacuated and placed in temporary shelters in nearby Ronda. In Germany, on the 5th of February, snowfall and freezing rain paralyzed Berlin airport. Since morning, all flight operations were suspended as it was impossible to clear ice from the aircraft. The layer of de-icing fluid froze before a second protective layer could be applied. North Africa was also affected by Storm Leonardo. In Morocco, heavy rains caused rivers and reservoirs to overflow their banks. Sudden floods and landslides forced 108,000 people to urgently leave their homes. In Larache province, a landslide destroyed a house in which 3 women were killed. The disaster claimed 2 more lives in Portugal and Spain. Japan. Since the 20th of January, Japan has been struck by the most severe snow disaster in decades, affecting 15 prefectures, causing significant infrastructure destruction and claiming dozens of lives. The most affected areas were those along the coast of the Sea of Japan. The snow cover in Aomori Prefecture on the 1st of February reached 183 centimeters, nearly 3 times the climatic norm. Aomori was virtually paralyzed. Snow blockages led to school closures and power supply disruptions. For the first time since 2005, authorities appealed to the self-defense forces for assistance in clearing roofs and supporting elderly people living alone. By the morning of the 3rd of February, in several prefectures, the situation crossed a critical threshold. In some places, snow cover reached 146 centimeters, which became an absolute record for the entire observation period. Starting from the 6th of February, Hokkaido Prefecture was also struck by powerful blizzards. In the city of Wakkanai, wind gusts reached 31 meters per second. On the day of the general elections, the 8th of February, heavy snowfall paralyzed transportation. More than 270 flights were cancelled, including those connecting Haneda and Osaka airports with other regions of the country. On the Tokaido and Sanyo lines, Shinkansen high-speed trains operated with delays. On the same day in Tokyo, where 5 centimeters of snow fell, a multi-vehicle accident involving 7 cars occurred on an icy bridge. 6 people were injured. At Hosei and Chuo universities, the start times of entrance examinations were postponed due to heavy snowfall. A break in the overhead contact line in the metropolitan region completely paralyzed traffic on the critically important Utsunomiya railway line, causing a severe transportation collapse. Record snowfalls claimed the lives of at least 42 people across the country. The main cause of death was falls from roofs while clearing snow. Philippines. Over the warm waters of the Philippine Sea, on the 3rd of February, a tropical system rapidly formed, which in just 2 days intensified into tropical storm Penha. On the night of the 5th of February, it struck Surigao del Sur province on the island of Mindanao. Despite relatively weak winds, about 60 kilometers per hour, the main danger lay in the extensive precipitation zone, up to 660 kilometers wide, which within hours triggered floods and landslides. In the central and southern regions of the Philippines, rivers overflowed their banks. Torrential rains damaged roads and partially isolated populated areas. The city of Iligan and surrounding areas of Misamis Oriental Province were particularly affected. Water rapidly flooded low-lying districts, washing away homes along riverbanks and carrying vehicles downstream. Residents urgently evacuated to higher ground, but some remained trapped in their homes. In the city of Cagayan de Oro, torrential rains caused a landslide that buried a residential house, resulting in the death of a family of 4. Nearly 80 seaports across the country were closed, leaving thousands of passengers stranded. After passing through the Philippines, the storm affected about 500,000 people and forced tens of thousands to evacuate. As a result of the disaster, 12 people died. Concern is growing because tropical storm Penha, accompanied by heavy rainfall, formed significantly earlier than the usual typhoon season in the Philippines, which typically begins in May. Kazakhstan. The city of Janatas in the Jambal region came under the force of hurricane-strength winds that caused significant damage to infrastructure. The storm began on the evening of the 5th of February, and by the morning of the following day, wind gusts had reached 36 meters per second. The powerful wind tore roofing and facade cladding from multi-story residential buildings. 8 commercial facilities and the House of Culture building were damaged. Wind gusts damaged approximately 2 kilometers of power lines and knocked down about 30 trees. In addition, transportation was affected. In some parts of the city, temporary power outages occurred. For safety reasons, 15 schools switched to remote learning. According to research data, winds exceeding 17.2 meters per second occur in Janatas, on average, no more than 5 hours per year. However, during this storm, sustained wind speeds remained at an anomalously high level for nearly 24 hours, ranging from 17 to 31 meters per second. This week's events once again draw attention to one of the most dangerous features of modern cataclysms, their synchronization. Natural disasters now occur not as isolated incidents, but as a wave, an entire cascade where one event triggers another. Such interconnection increases progression and accelerates the destruction of our planet. Scientists from Alatra recorded the first signs of synchronization of natural disasters in 2020 and reported them to the global community. It then became evident that the climate had entered a new level, where events occur simultaneously in different regions, reinforcing each other and multiplying the damage. Even then, it was clear, time was limited, and action had to be taken immediately. However, humanity missed the opportunity to implement scientifically grounded technologies that Alatra scientists had proposed for climate stabilization. The result is what we observe today, The synchronization of cataclysms has reached such a scale that residents of some countries do not have time to recover from one disaster before the next one strikes. People are living in a continuous climate nightmare. Europe clearly demonstrates the scale of the problem. Less than 1.5 months of 2026 have passed, and some countries have already experienced 7 storms in succession. More clearly than any words, statistics. The graph of storm winds in Europe speaks for itself, and no commentary is necessary. All of this serves as a reminder of the value of time and the need to act immediately. While there is still a scientific foundation, laboratories, monitoring centers, and specialists capable of finding a solution, more and more people understand that destructive processes will not stop without conscious human intervention. That is why hundreds of thousands of people are already sharing this information with friends, acquaintances, and their communities, realizing that only a shared understanding of the scale of the crisis by all people on the planet can accelerate the search for a solution. They act for the sake of life, their own and that of their children,